Sir Thomas Carlyle tells the story of a cocker spaniel in Edinburgh, the most timid and reserved of its race, which shrank from all attention save that of its mistress, until one day on the street it made a sudden spring towards a tall, halting stranger, and fawned upon him in an ecstasy of delight. This was, of course, Sir Walter Scott, whose great heart, like a magnet, drew to it all other hearts, whether bold or shy. His horses all fed from his hand, and preferred his attendance to that of the grooms, while, until lameness obliged him, in later years, to give up walking, he would never ride on Sunday, believing that all domestic animals have a full right to their Sabbath of rest. In 1803, the canine favourite was Camp, a fine bull terrier, very handsome, very intelligent, and naturally very fierce, but gentle as a lamb among the children. He had considerable intellect in his way, and understood much that was said to him. Once he bit the family baker, and was severely punished for it, his offence being at the same time explained to him, says Scott. To the last moment of his life, he never heard the least allusion to the story, in whatever voice or tone it was mentioned, without getting up and retiring into the darkest corner of the room, with great appearance of distress. Then if you said, the baker was well paid, or, the baker was not hurt after all, Camp came forth from his hiding place, capered, and barked, and rejoiced. He lost none of his brightness, although strength began to fail him in 1808, so that he could no longer accompany Sir Walter on his rides. But still when as evening drew on, the servant would say, "Camp, the shearers come in hame by the ford, or by the hill." Camp would patter stiffly to the front door or back, as the direction might imply, and there await the master whom he could no longer follow. He died the ensuing year and was buried in the garden of Scott's Edinburgh house, where even yet the place is pointed out. The whole family stood in tears around the grave, while Sir Walter himself, with sad face, smoothed the turf above his old companion. He had been invited to dine from home that night, but excused himself on account of the death of a dear old friend, and none wondered when they learned it was Camp. A few words must be kept for Heinz felt, the large black family cat that usually lay on the top stair of the book ladder in Sir Walter's study, coming down if Camp left the room, to guard the footstool until he should return. Sir Walter describes her clapper clawing the dogs. Scott was by nature not very fond of cats, but Heinz reconciled him to the race, so that even in a dull London hotel, he could enjoy the society of what he termed a tolerably conversable cat, that ate a mess of cream with me each morning. In 1825 a great business crash involved Sir Walter in a debt, to pay which he wore out the remnant of his life. Just before, he had been planning a return to Abbotsford. "But now my dogs will wait for me in vain. I feel their feet on my knees, I hear them whining and seeking me everywhere. This is nonsense, but it is what they would do could they know how things may be." Indeed, for master as for petted friends, the end was now approaching. He grew each day more sad and feeble, until at last even his hound's rough caress was more than his spent frame could bear. As a last hope he was taken on a voyage, but the remedy was powerless, and he hurried home to die. Half wild with joy at seeing the old familiar scenes once more, he finally reached Abbotsford, and sank exhausted in his chair. There the dogs gathered around him, they began to fawn upon him and lick his hands, and he alternately sobbed and smiled over them until sleep oppressed him. This sleep ere long deepened into a slumber more profound, and death came between Sir Walter and his friends on earth.